Thank you so much for joining us here on episode 73 of the podcast. And of course, alongside me, as always, from flamesnation.ca, it's Robert Munich. How we doing, Robert?
Doing great. Looking forward to talking a little Flames, talking a little road trip action here. They're actually scoring some goals. They're scoring nice goals. Guys are putting up points. There's lots to dive into today.
Speaking of scoring, did you score yourself any good Easter treats this weekend? Any Easter egg hunts in the Munich household?
No Easter egg hunts. Me and my brother are a little old for that now, but got a niece, but even she's a little too young for it. So not quite, but definitely crushed some mini eggs like we were talking last week. Love some mini eggs.
Man, I think I've had too many mini eggs. Let's just say that I'm good till next year. I think I'm on the mini egg train because when you have multiple children in the house, you get multiple bags, and multiple bags means multiple sittings of eating fistfuls of mini eggs. So, but it's good. It's good. Great. And hopefully everyone else had a safe and happy Easter. Glad to be back with you on the podcast this week. Robert, we recorded last week after the debacle in Colorado, and things were a bit down. And they went into Vegas last week and didn't seem to really get anything going in Vegas. They dropped that one. Then they played that game on Saturday where Anahiem looked like they could get nothing going. Anahiem felt like they were the second best team, and I think the Flames played one of their better games on the weekend. What'd you make of the two games since we recorded last week? Because it was two pretty different hockey games here, but like you mentioned, we saw some goals.
I thought the Vegas game was the perfect tank game. I mean, they had that thing at 3-3. They kept it competitive, and then they just kind of fell apart in the third period, which I think is exactly what you're looking for.
The
if
ethical
you're a
tank
Flames fan right now. It was the ultimate tank game. So yeah, good on them. And yeah, they scored 3 goals. So I mean, they kept their streak alive when they score 4 or more goals. I think they're up to 56 straight wins. So they still scored 3. They kept the record going. So yeah, that was good. Minus that 40-minute delay. Oh my God. I was just like, please, can we just cancel the game and just give it to Vegas?
Yeah, right.
Just forfeit the damn thing. I don't want to stay up till 11 o'clock watching this. And then the Anahiem game was actually pretty fun.
Yeah.
I know there's going to be a lot of fans out there who didn't want the win, and I'm right there with them. But at the same time, they scored 5 goals off the rush. I know one was into an empty net, but they scored nice goals. It was a really entertaining game. Like, I love watching the Anahiem Ducks because they take so many chances, and there's a lot of back and forth hockey, which I find incredibly entertaining. So that was fun. So yeah, I mean, their next 6 games are quite difficult. I'm really not expecting them to win more than 2. I think they'll probably get 2 at the most. So I'm not really too worried about the whole wins and losses thing. So, but yeah, like I said, I think I've said this last few weeks, but just this season has just been so miserable from an entertainment standpoint. To see the team since the trade deadline starting to score some goals has actually been pretty fun. So, yeah, it was pretty decent. What'd you make of it?
Yeah, I liked it. I know they felt like a step behind in Vegas, but I still think that they played an okay game there. They got the 3 goals like you mentioned. The guys were engaged in it. I thought they got the goaltending. And at the end of the day, Vegas had the skill. The Flames didn't. That game in Anahiem, I thought, was one of the better games the Flames have played this year, start to finish. It felt like more of a 60-minute effort. I thought Devin Cooley was dialed in. He wasn't giving Anahiem anything. You really liked the bounce back from that Frost line after that awful game they had in Colorado. You really liked the bounce back of the defense. It was nice to see Kuznetsov play as well. She had all 3 of the kids on the blue line playing, which was fun to see. And Matt Gridden really stood out for me in that game as well. I put it on Twitter as well, and some people called me Captain Obvious for it, but this guy really feels like the best playmaker this Flames team has had in years. He's really done what people are hoping Huberdeau was going to do. I think Matt Gridden's done that type of playmaking, that type of ability, so an elevation in his game. So I think the road trip's been fine for the Flames results-wise. You can't live and die at this point of the year with wins and losses anymore. It is what it is. You're seeing separation above the Flames a little bit. They're going to be in that bottom 4. It is what it is, and just let the chips fall where they may at this point of the season, and just hope these guys can continue to develop. For me, these last few games are more about the development of the team, of the players, seeing what you have in some of these veterans, et cetera, rather than the actual results in of itself. And I know Team Tank's not going to enjoy that opinion, but at this point of the year, it is what it is. And it was nice actually to see the team play. Result aside, it's exciting to see the team actually show up and play a game like they did in Anaheim. They competed hard, they skated hard, and they were able to impose their will at times. And we got a couple of milestones over that weekend as well. It was nice to see Morgan Frost get to the 20-goal mark. It was nice to see Ryan Strome come back to Anaheim. He scores a big, important goal in his career. So it was nice to see those guys get rewarded for their efforts as well, Robert, in those games here. So I mentioned Morgan Frost getting to 20 goals. That's the first time he's done that in his career. Pretty important milestone for the former Flyer for what he's done here. He set that goal for himself and achieve it. How important for you is it that he got there as well, Robert, to show that he can be a 20-goal scorer in this league? And should that now be the new expectation for number 16?
Yeah, I mean, good on him. He's ever since the trade deadline, ever since they moved out Nazem Kadri and they've elevated Morgan Frost's role on the team to being, the number one offensive centerman on the team, he's been very good. I mean, he's got 12 points in his last 15 games. That's like about a 65-point pace over 82. He scored 8 goals in those 15 games, so he's been on an absolute heater. And these goals he's scoring, they're not just, it's not going off a defender skating in, and it's not a goalie whiffing on it. He's ripping shots past goalies, and he's making nice moves. Yeah, and he's scoring on breakaways. It's been really, really impressive to see. So, part of me is like, that's great, and I'm happy for Morgan Frost because we see the potential on this player, and he has the skill and talent to be a 60-point guy. He just doesn't have the consistency, so it's nice to see him showing that he can be that guy, but at the same time, he's doing it during games that don't matter, where there's absolutely no pressure on this team. There's no pressure from management and ownership. There's no pressure from the fans. There's no pressure from the league. Teams I don't think are taking the Flames all that seriously right now. So, yes, it's good he's doing this. It's better that he's doing this than not, of course. But at the same time, I also think that we have to kind of keep in mind that he's doing this at a time when things don't really matter. So, I'm in the camp where I think they absolutely bring him back. I don't think they should trade him right now. Bring him back next season, and let's see what he does, October through February. And if he can kind of continue to play like this, then I think he's someone that you should look to sign. If he comes back next season and he had the October through February that he had this year, if he has that next year and still is wildly inconsistent and all that kind of stuff, then I think you look to trade him, because I don't know if you want to sign that type of player for 5 or 6 years. If he can show the consistency next year, like if he gets the opportunity and he takes the ball and runs with it, then great, you sign him. If he's wildly inconsistent, then I think you trade him. So it's going to be up to Morgan Frost here to see what he's going to do. But like I said, good for him. Shout out to him, and he's playing really entertaining hockey. Like it's a lot of fun to watch this guy right now.
Yeah, you mentioned the key in there for me, and that's consistency, right? I was asked on another show that I was on about Morgan Frost and my thoughts on his season. I'm like, this is what you wanted to see. Post-trade deadline is exactly what you wanted to see from Morgan Frost. You wanted to see him elevate his game. He was given the opportunity. You wanted to see him score. You mentioned there, Robert, how he's scoring these goals. They're nice goals. He's putting himself in spots to use his shot. His play is picked up. He's playing a lot smarter, a lot quicker. And that's what you want, but you need to see that consistently when it matters a little bit more for the Flames, for the team. And if you can get Morgan to do that for you, you're looking at a guy that you can count on to be in that middle six centerman spot, a leader for your forward group going into this rebuild. And maybe even when they come out of the rebuild, he's the guy they can still rely upon. Look at what Jordan Staal does for the Carolina Hurricanes. An extreme example, I know, but it's a veteran leader who plays in the middle of the ice that they can rely on to bring them more than just a face-off guy, a guy who can score points, a guy who can lead, a guy who can be there and drive a line. So what you've seen from Morgan Frost since the trade deadline is exactly what we need to see from Morgan Frost over 82 games. And if you get that, that's a guy you sign. That's a guy you keep around, in my opinion. And he's not all that old yet. He is getting up there, yes, but he's not all that old yet. So you can sign this guy if he's going to perform that way. So consistency for me is the key for Morgan Frost as well. That's really, really good. I also mentioned Ryan Strome. He got himself a nice little goal on his return back to Anaheim. He's been one of the brighter spots since the trade deadline as well for the Flames. And I posed you to this question. We talked about Zach Whitecloud when he was acquired as just a flippable asset. And then we changed our opinions. We got Ryan Stroman here to be a guy that's just trying to take over a leadership role. Are we changing our minds? Is this a guy who you keep longer term, or is this for you still a flippable asset? Because he's really put himself in that same category, in my opinion, as Zach Whitecloud. This is a guy that you might want to keep around here to help your kids learn this game. Where are you at with Ryan Stroman, what you've seen from him?
You know what? I mean, because the Flames don't have immediate help from their prospect system down the middle of the ice, like there's not a center that's going to come up and take the third line center role or second line center role probably within the next 2 or 3 years, because Reshny's still young. He's going to go back to college next year. I think he still needs time to develop. Stockselius needs time to develop. You know, I don't think Rory Cairns is ever going to get an opportunity to play center. You know, Sam Morton's not that guy. So, you know, Castagna and Tyson Gross, I don't think are going to be those guys either. So there's going to be a hole there to fill, particularly like third and fourth line center. And, you know, if they want to bring back Ryan Strome, say on a 1-year deal after his contract expires, just to keep him in the locker room and keep those good vibes and, you know, help develop young players, then, you know, sure. I might be open to something like that, especially considering that, you know, the Flames, you know, like we've talked about this a bunch over the last few weeks here, is just, you need to make sure that this place is a fun environment to come to work in. You need to make sure that your young players are coming here and growing and developing and are surrounded by the right people. And I think Ryan Strome is that person. You know, I've been talking about, you want to keep guys like Lomberg and Whitecloud. And I throw Ryan Strome right in that mix too. And, you know, maybe he could play that kind of veteran Matt Stajan kind of role that Stajan played for, you know, the Gaudreaus and Monahans and Bennett's of the world. So maybe he can play that type of role for next season and maybe the year beyond that. So yeah, I'm all for keeping him for a short amount of time. I certainly wouldn't sign him long term, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the perfect comparable, and Kent Wilson was the one that came up with this. I think the perfect comparable could be a Matt Stajan, where he plays that fourth or third line role and takes on some matchups and is great in the room. You know, I see nothing wrong with that. How about you?
Yeah, everyone wants to have this lineup of all 25 runners, right? And just because he's not that age, people are like, well, we don't really want him around. But you mentioned a really good, important fact there. Who's taking that role? Who's taking on that spot of the roster right away here? And the answer is there really isn't anyone yet. There's going to be guys coming. There are guys coming. You need stopgap guys. And who better than a veteran like Ryan Strome, a guy who just wants to play? That's exactly what he's been saying in the media since he's been in Calgary. He just wanted a chance to come in and play. And Calgary's giving him that opportunity. So this is a guy who I think won't give you any problems outside of the game. I think he'll be showing up. He'll be a good pro for you, and he'll do the job that you need him to do. And I think as well, this is a guy like we just talked about, Morgan Frost. Maybe Morgan Frost can learn a thing or two from Ryan Strome about being a more consistent NHLer. What if we can get guys in this lineup that can learn from Ryan how to be a good pro? Guys like Othman or Zary can take a step forward. Matt Fageritten, a guy to look up to for him as well. So I think it's important to not just start throwing these veterans out with the bathwater because they're over 30 years old. I think if you do that, you can put yourself in a hole in a hurry, and you are relying, and no disrespect to these players, you are relying on a Costanza or a Gross to be a third-line center well before they're ready to even maybe be an NHLer. And so you put yourself in a big hole, and then you're derailing your rebuild. You're extending your rebuild. So these players are still important in the lineup. So much like I would keep Whitecloud on the back end for the same reasons, I would keep Ryan Strome up front for those reasons. And having Ryan Strome and Michael Backlund as two veteran forwards on this roster for a couple more seasons, I think will be a very good thing to help these guys out, because you need leaders. You need guys to keep these kids grounded, and you need pros. And Ryan Strome is definitely a pro. He showed that in Anaheim, the way he could lead a team, drive a line still, be effective in his play. And I think it really would behoove the Flames to continue to do that type of model here. And say in 2 years it's time to move on, then you move on, and it's easy. You can find a suitor for a guy like a Ryan Strome, I'm sure, out there if you were the Flames trying to flip it.
Can I just play devil's advocate there?
Yeah, jump in there.
Now the other side of the equation is next year when he's a pending UFA, you move him around the trade deadline and say like he continues to play solid hockey. I don't think he's going to be putting up 11 points in 15 games. I don't think he's going to be having that type of production next year. But say he's around half a point per game, and he could be a solid third or fourth line center addition for a contending team. And that contending team, they're willing to give up a second or a third round pick. The other thing to keep in mind is that you can find your Ryan Stromes, like the
Agreed.
Flames just did with him. Who is the veteran leader on a really good team that's kind of been pushed out of the lineup, either because of poor performance or because of their contract. Can you go out and find the next Ryan Strome? Can you trade Strome for a third round pick and then either take another team's pick along with the player to come back, or do like what Craig Conroy just did at this year's deadline and trade a 7th rounder to bring in that guy? I mean, that's another thing too. I mean, there was so much talk, and it wasn't really necessarily amongst the fans. It was more so like the kind of established media in Calgary. There was a lot of talk about you can't trade Blake Coleman and you can't trade Nazem Kadri and you can't trade Rasmus Anderson and Mackenzie Weegar because they're such important leaders. And once you trade them, you're going to be looking for the next Rasmus Anderson and all that kind of stuff. But I think what Craig Conroy has just shown us here is that you can trade those really good players and those really good leaders, which they were, but you can also acquire good veteran players as a stopgap. And there are good veteran players available every year for cheap that can come into your locker room and be good leaders and a stabling force and all that kind of stuff. So, on one hand, yes, it would be nice to keep a guy like Strome because he seems like such a good dude. You can tell he's already taken guys like Zary and Parekh under his wing, which is awesome. I mean, he's been with the team for less than a month and he's already doing those things. So credit to Ryan Strome. At the same time, you can find those guys just like Conroy did at the deadline. So, saying around next year's deadline, they get that second or third round pick for Strome, then I think you kind of have to do it potentially. And then you can just go out and try to find your next Ryan Strome. That's kind of another way to look at it.
Absolutely. Manage your assets, right? It's essentially that. Like, you're going to bring in a guy for a 7th and some guy next year's going to offer you a 2nd for him. You manage the asset that way. You're spot on there. And if you don't get the offer, then there's no harm in keeping a guy like Ryan Strome as well. That's a nice point by you. Well done there, Robert. We, for the first time, were able to see the Flames blue line feature Yanni Kuznetsov, Zane Parekh, and Hunter Brzustevich. I, for one, was very excited to watch it. I, for one, kept a close eye on it. And I, for one, kind of liked what I saw. What'd you make of the 3 kids with the 3 veterans on the back end? It was fun to watch the Flames use their youth and let them have a good game. He didn't bench anyone. He didn't shortchange anyone on minutes, I don't think. And I think these guys got a chance to play. And I quite liked what I saw from that. And if that's what we're getting in the future for the Flames defense, it's a good starting point.
I always thought it was ridiculous hearing people say that you can't play them all at the same time. Like,
right?
Come on. Are you kidding me? Especially at this time of the year. Hell, even if they were trying to go for a playoff spot, I would still say that you could keep all 3 of those guys in because I think they're all good enough. Joel Hanley's hurt for the rest of the year. You don't want Braden Pahal playing his offside, and you don't want to take one of the young players out to put Pahal in. And I think that Anahiem game was the perfect example of you can still win and you can still be super competitive, even having 3 young defensemen in the lineup. I thought that Brzustevich and Parekh both played really well against the Ducks. Parekh was pretty dynamic in that game. There were times where he was making just ridiculous passes. Like they were beautiful passes that he was making. And
really good.
Man, you're starting to see the potential there. Like, you're starting to see the guy who was playing in the OHL last year, whether it's like the moves he's making on the blue line now. When at the start of the season when he had no confidence, he was basically, he'd get the puck of the blue line and he'd basically just rip it back into the zone, or he'd get it back down to a winger, along the boards or down at the goal line. Now he's shooting the puck from the point. He's making moves at the point. He's making cross-ice passes. He's so much more confident than he was at the beginning of the season, which is awesome to see. So, those 3 have to be in the lineup every night between now and the end of the season. I mean, sure, if you want to take Parekh out, in Seattle on Saturday because it's the first of a back-to-back, then whatever, it's one game. At the same time, though, like, I would like to see them in every game for now and between now and the end of the season. like I said, I just think it's ridiculous that there was even that argument that they
Me
shouldn't
too.
be in. It's so silly.
I think as well the Flames should stop with this Zane Parekh load management thing. He took some big hits against Anaheim the other day as well. But it's just like you've seen the confidence in his. I'm talking his pace of play has just been quicker. I thought I saw a lot of the same from Hunter Brzustevich. That's one of the big things in his game is playing with pace. We saw that. And I thought Jan was the steady guy that we saw. So I think that we don't need to load manage these guys anymore. I think you play them in these situations. If that means that a Braden Pahal sits the last 6 games, sorry, Mr. Pahal, but that's just the name of the game. That's what you are when you're a seventh defenseman. I think, like you mentioned there, Robert, I think this is valuable experience for these 3 guys. I think it's valuable for them to have games like they had in Anaheim, but I think it's also very important for them to feel what it's like to be on the road in other markets and maybe not have such a great game together, to learn from those mistakes, learn from those situations. And it's going to help if you're worried about your wins and losses, I think playing those 3 guys will help you in that category as well. They're just not talented enough quite yet, but we see what's coming for the Flames, and I quite like it. I'd like to see it again in Seattle. I'd like to see it again in Dallas. I'd like to see it again the rest of the way, to be honest, from all 6 of the games left. And you can manage their minutes within games if you need to, but I think it's important to watch those 3 guys play and let them play, because what we saw in Anaheim, I'm pretty excited for what's coming in the future for the Flames here.
It's good for those defensemen to see really good players on the other side. Like if
100%.
Zane Parex's on the ice with a Leo Carlson, it's like, okay, this is an elite high-end center in the NHL. This is how fast he is. This is how he plays the game, and this is the level that I need to up my game to keep up. And I look at the upcoming games here. I want Parekh and Brzustevich playing against the Dallas Stars, the second best team in the NHL. I want them playing against the Colorado Avalanche. I want them going up against Clayton Keller and Logan Cooley and Dylan Guenther against Utah. And I want them to go up against a guy like Kopitar and Kempe on the LA Kings. These are all great learning experiences for these players. So yeah, keep them in the lineup, keep them playing. I'm with you. Don't protect Parekh as much as you have been. Keep giving Brzustevich top 4 minutes. Like this is the time to do this stuff. And I think we got Connor Zary in the rundown coming up here, but like I look at a guy like Zary, why are you protecting him so much? Why are you playing on the 4th line? The same could be said with Parekh on some nights. Why are you sheltering him like crazy? Yes, he's going to make his mistakes, but who cares? Like this is the time to learn. So yeah, I really hope in these last 6 games here, I really hope that we see these guys get a bigger opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% with you there. As much as it might scare some Flame fans, let me see Kuznetsov try to defend the McKinnon line. Just let me see it. Let me see what this guy's capable of. Can he be a future top 4 guy that can shut down other teams' top lines? You don't know with these kids unless you play them, unless you try them out, unless you give them an exposure to those situations. It's just 100% how it should go. We talk about these winning games, and people are talking about that win streak they had at home at 5-0-1. You talk about a win here that's 1 of 3 on the road. Their last 10 games they have a really good record over the last 10 games here. People are really worried about this winning, Robert. And then you look ahead to next year and you see much of the same faces, almost all of the same faces minus Lomberger coming back next year. So posing the question, is this the Flames team we're going to see next year? And is this winning sustainable for this group, or are we just seeing a relaxed group post deadline for you? Because we're not going to see a lot of changeover, I don't think, on this roster.
You're not going to see like any changeover. I mean, basically the entire team is signed into next year. I would be pretty stunned if we see a lot of moves
trade,
this season. Yeah. So let's look at it since the trade deadline, because that's when they made all these moves, and that's when they brought in Strome, Matt, and all those guys. They're 8-6-1. They're in 17th place in the NHL during that time. Of course they are. Of course they're 17th in the mushy middle.
Welcome home.
It feels so good to be home. It's like a warm hug, But, I don't think it's sustainable. I really don't. I take a look at their leading scores since the trade deadline, and it's Morgan Frost, 12 points in 15 games. That's coming up on a 70-point pace over 82. I just don't see that happening. Blake Coleman has 11 points in his last 15. He's not going to be with the team all of next season, or for most of next season. He's going to get traded at some point. I don't see Strome keeping this up. I don't see Maddox keeping this up. Joel Farabee has 11 points in his last 15 games. I don't think he's going to be that productive. So there's a lot of players who are on a heater right now. There's a lot of guys who are playing extremely loose. I think Ryan Huska has kind of loosened things up a little bit, which I really appreciate from an entertainment standpoint. But heading into the beginning of next season, when Huska is going to be coaching games to win, I bet you we're going to see a very uptight defensive system again. And I just don't see them scoring as many goals as they are right now. Like, I mean, just look at the team on paper. And if you were just to take their career averages, it's one of the worst teams in the NHL. Like, it's a really bad team on paper. So yeah, I do not see this type of hockey or this type of success happening next season. The one thing I do see getting in the way is goaltending. I'm not sure. Well, I'm pretty confident in saying that Dustin Wolf is going to be better next year. I think it's been I don't know if it's been a rough year for him, but it's been just okay, maybe a little bit below okay, if that makes sense. But so I see him coming back next year and being a better goalie. And then you have Devin Cooley this year, who's come in and just been absolutely spectacular. You take a look at that stat, goals save above expected. According to Money Puck, he's 10th in the NHL, and all the goalies in front of him have played either 10 to 15 more games than Cooley this season, and he's in the top 10. And, if you're looking at that stat on a per 60 basis, so kind of levels out the playing field, he's by far and away first in the NHL. Even on Money Puck, they have a wins above replacement stat, and Devin Cooley, according to this stat, is responsible for at least 3 wins on his own this season. That's as a backup goalie. He's only played 29 games. I mean, you take away those 3 wins, and the Flames, they're comfortably in 31st place. So, yeah, I think the goaltending is going to be good. I think, guys like Gridden and Parekh and Brstevich are going to take steps next year. But, man, those veteran players, I just don't see them producing at the rate that they have been since the trade deadline. Like, can you see Strome producing at this rate? Can you see Frost producing at this rate? Can you see Coleman? Like, I personally don't see it.
You mean you don't see a Norris caliber season from Ole Mata?
I really don't.
It's all due respect to these guys that we make joke around like this, right? Like, you're seeing a team since the trade deadline have a couple things go their way. This team's relaxed because they know it's coming. So they're going to be a bottom 4 team. They're relaxed. They don't have anything to play for. You're seeing veterans in Ryan Strome and Ole Mata who are getting all they wanted was an opportunity to play hockey again, right? That's all these guys wanted. And so they got these opportunities. They're playing, and they're NHL players. Like, Ryan Strome is a good NHL player. He was pushed out of Anaheim because guys like Cutter Gauthier came along and McTavish developed, right? So he's just pushed out that way, naturally pushed out, which is fine. That's the progression of a hockey team when you're trying to build something. Hopefully that happens in Calgary one of these days with somebody. They've gotten these veterans to play their style. And when you're playing loose and you have your veterans coming to work and guys like Blake Holman are a really good hockey player still, and he wants to stick at the team tank, whether we like it or not, whatever motivates you go to the rink, motivates you go to the rink. And these guys are playing loose with it, and you're getting the goaltending, you're getting the breaks, you're scoring goals now. This team is scoring goals now like we haven't seen all season long. Like, for a long time there, they were scoring under 2 goals per game over the course of the month between October and December in there. It wasn't pretty. So you're getting a lot of things going your way now. And so when you get all that together, it's hard to sustain that. And it's hard to carry one season to the next if you're the Flames. Can you carry this loosey style over to next year and expect the same results? I don't think you can. You can't copy and paste the NHL season. It's really hard to do so. So I think on paper, going into next season, there's still the lack of skill. There's still the lack of depth. There's still the lack of a number 1 center on this team. There's a lot of questions still for the Flames, and we might like watching Ryan Strome play and his approach and what he's done for these kids. I might enjoy this 20-goal season from Frost, but I need to see it again next year, and you just can't count on those things happening again. Does Devin Cooley take a step back? Does Dustin Wolf take a step forward? What is the development of Parekh and Kuznetsov and Brstevich next year? Do we see sophomore slumps for these guys? Lots of questions surround the Flames heading into next season, and we don't even know if this is the full roster. On paper right now, according to the contracts, it is, but is there a move we're not seeing? Does Blake Coleman make it to next season? So I don't think this winning follows the Flames to next year. In fact, if the Flames aren't picking top 3 next year or top 4 next year too, I'll be very surprised. I will say that right now. I just don't think this team's any good for next year, and that's okay. When you're building, build it properly. Don't rush this along. So it's nice to watch this team get some results and play this looser style of hockey. I just don't think we're going to see it next year, Robert. And that's okay. And that's okay. I'd rather see the kids develop than this team rush the rebuild.
I agree. Yeah, for all the people out there that are a little worried about what we're seeing right now, I would just say,
I wouldn't.
Don't worry. Don't worry. The way I kind of view it is, it kind of like I said before, is when I list out what the Flames are going to look like next year, I usually just think, well, okay, what are these players' career averages? Because some guys are going to play above average, some guys are going to play below average, but I think it's all going to kind of equal out across the board. And when you take a look at all these guys' career averages, and even throw in Jonathan Huberdeau and average out his time with the Flames, I wouldn't even consider his time with the Panthers anymore. That's long gone. I look at a roster that's going to struggle. I look at a roster that is probably going to put up around the same record, if not even be worse next year than compared to what the Flames were from October to the trade deadline. And from October to the trade deadline this year, they were by far and away like the second worst team in the NHL. So yes, they're on a bit of a heater right now. There's a bunch of guys playing, well above their weight, and good on them. That's great for them. But I just don't see that being sustainable. Like you said, like Oli Mata, 11 points in 15 games. That's insane. Ryan Strome, 11 points in 15 games. Like, those things aren't going to happen. And yes, you're going to have a full year of Matt Bay-Gridden, who, Gridden's got 10 points in his last 14 games, and I could see him being a 50, 60-point guy next year. And, you're hoping Parekh can get to 30, 40 points, and you're hoping Brstevich can be a regular 30-point guy. That's all great, but I don't know if that's going to be enough to make up for the decline in what we're going to see from a lot of these players, in my opinion. So, yeah, I would not worry about it if I was a Flames fan.
Backlund and Frost tie for this team's lead in points at 41. There's 6 games left. Coronado's third at 40. 6 games left. Do we even get a 45-point scorer on this team this season? Just ask yourself that. And so the same roster comes back next year, and your leading goal scorers right now at the end of the season would be a half a point per game. So I'm not worried about this team all of a sudden becoming murky middle or a wild card team or in the mix type of situation. I really think that we're in for another season like we had this year, more by design than this year was supposed to be for the Flames. But I just don't see this winning carrying over next year. All due respect to these guys, and Oli Mata for Norris t-shirts don't need to be made. I think we're okay there.
Even like heading into next year, who's going to be a 50+ point player? I think I'm comfortable saying Gridden can get there. If Frost continues to play like this and take advantage of this opportunity, I could see him getting there. Maybe Farabee, like that's a maybe, but that's it. And I think those guys are maxing out at like 60 points. So how many can make the playoffs with 1 or 2 50-point guys? I just don't think it's going to happen.
You hit the maybes with player number 2 on your list. That's not a good roster.
Yeah,
we're confident Matt Bay can get there, but we're a maybe Frost can get, a maybe Coronado, maybe a Farabee, and that's when you have a roster full of maybes, you have a roster full of not ready yet, and that's what it is. And that's okay, because that just means more rebuilding. And me personally, that means a shot at Alexis Joseph next year, and that's my guy for next draft. We'll get into that later on another episode of the podcast.
Can I just point out something quickly that I just kind of discovered?
Only if it's interesting.
I think it's interesting, so it's probably not going to be interesting. You take a look at, like, I know everybody hates plus minus, whatever. You take a look at the Flames plus minus since the trade deadline, and it's like Blake Coleman +7, Farabee +6, Kuznetsov +4. The majority of the team is either anywhere from +7 to -4. So there's not like a huge gap between there. But then you scroll down to the very bottom of the list. Adam Klapka is a -10 on a team that's actually scoring a bunch of goals and is above 500 since the trade deadline. He's got 1 goal and 2 assists. and he's a team worst -10. The next closest player is Kevin Ball. And Kevin Ball, he is on the ice for some of those like unfortunate minuses where it's at the end of a game and you get scored on with an empty net or something like that. Klapka's not in that situation. Like Klapka's earning these minuses at 5-on-5. And what I've noticed from him lately is that he's taking a lot of really dumb penalties. This is a guy who, when he's controlled and when he's playing a smart game and he's playing within himself, I actually think he's a really effective player. But what we've seen recently from him, basically since the trade deadline, he's been really bad. Like just taking ridiculous penalties at the worst times. Like there are times that when I watch him and he'll just do like a stupid penalty to get back at somebody, or against Vegas he smoked Colasar from behind during that scrum. Like it's like stuff like that. You're like, man, like you're playing just stupid hockey right now. And if this guy wants a future in the league, he's really got to smarten up. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on him lately, like particularly since the deadline.
I'll be honest, I haven't liked him since like the beginning of February. I think he's had games where he's been fine, but I'm not. Oh man, I'm gonna take some hate for this probably. I'm not a Klapka fan, to be honest. I'll be completely honest with you.
How could you?
I think he has games where he gets elevated and he plays really well. But if you look at those games that he's elevated and played really well, it ended up being with Nazem Kadri a lot of times. Since Kadri's been moved, so since the trade deadline, he's fallen off a cliff. He's been replaceable for me. I think him playing over guys like Lomberg don't really give you anything. I think with the recall of Suniev, which we'll get to in a second here, I think he's a guy who could play over Klapka right now. I think Beecher and Othman play over him right now. He needs to go back to just simplifying his game like he was before. When he is playing in that fourth line role, in a defined fourth line role, and he moves his feet and he's engaged in the play, he's a fine fourth line player in the National Hockey League. He's what you want there. It's when he gets over his skis and he tries to do too much and he's not a fighter as much as he is a big man. Like that fight he had against Vancouver is like, okay, great. But it didn't add anything to the game. He doesn't add any value to the game outside of that. And when you're not bringing the value that you can bring, what useful are you? So if, like you mentioned, if he's going to be part of this team longer term and going into next year, he's got to find that form again. He's got to realize that he's a role player. He's got to realize that when he's engaged in his game and he's thinking, he can play, but you can't be doing things like the hit on Colasar. You can't be fighting just to fight. You can't be doing those kind of things. That's not your game. Play your game. Play with what got you to the National Hockey League, why the Flames played you, why Ryan Huska had the trust in you. If he plays that way, fine. But for me, I'd rather have other guys in the lineup right now. And you can go ahead and DM me Vintage Johnny 84 across social media and tell me how wrong I am. But for right now, I don't play him.
Well, the thing is too, you got guys like Brennan Othman who can play in Adam Klapka's position. Like I'd almost rather see a guy like Othman get more of an opportunity than Klapka.
Me too. Yep.
And Othman, you got sent down to the Wranglers yesterday, which I think is unfortunate. But there are other guys that can take that role. And if Klapka's not careful here over the final 6 games, he might head into next year's training camp without an NHL job. Like he's not going to be guaranteed to start training camp with an NHL position, because the Flames, they have a ton of forwards. They have a ton of forwards that are pushing, and if Klapka continues to play this way and be a -10 and take stupid penalties and cost his team games, he might be out of the league pretty soon. So yeah, he's really got to smarten up.
He's got to watch too, because there's guys coming, right? We've talked about guys like Suniev, Stromgren's coming. Can Rory Cairns become an NHL winger? Like there are guys coming, and Flames have drafted guys that if you're not careful, we said this about multiple guys. If you're not careful, there's going to be someone taking your job right away here. And they have 15 forwards right now. Like one of those guys will step into the lineup and play. You might lose your job to a John Beecher. You might lose your job to a William Stromgren. Like you got to be careful. Play your game and get back to what made you successful. Just he's got to put his head back into it, in my opinion. A guy who we've had conversations before, and he struggled. He's had his injuries, and really would love his head to be in these games as well. is Connor Zary. You mentioned something to me before we recorded that there was conversations about maybe a disconnect between Connor Zary and Ryan Huska. So what do you make of this conversation? Do you think there's a disconnect there? What do you know? What do you hear? What's your opinion on this thing? Because Connor Zary, like, what's really going on here?
Well, yeah, just listening to the Fan 960 the last couple days, like I heard Steinberg say on the post-game show that he thinks there might be a disconnect between Zary and Huska. Even on the morning show, I heard them mention something similar to that. So to me, that's concerning because Connor Zary, he was supposed to be a guy that you were going to be able to build around, and he could have been a 40 to 50 point player, and he could have been effective. And all of a sudden, that's starting to go away pretty quickly. I know he's coming off an injury, but if you take a look, since the deadline, his last 10 games, he has 1 goal and 0 assists. He's not getting very much ice time. He's playing on the fourth line, and number one, the fact he's playing on the fourth line right now at this point in the season is utterly ridiculous.
It's stupid.
So stupid. Like, we kind of defended Ryan Huska last week, and I still think Huska's a good coach, but like things like that are just like mind-numbing decisions. You're playing a guy like Victor Olofsson and Yegor Sharangovich, well, like quite a bit more ice time compared to a guy like Zary, and giving them a much bigger role than Zary. I just think it's absolutely outrageous. But Zary, now, okay, I'll ask you a question. Is it a case where Zary just hasn't earned it, and Ryan Huska's waiting for Zary to push and show that he deserves that extra ice time? Or do you think in order to get to the level that Zary needs to, he needs the opportunity first to show Huska? Like I think that's kind of the number one question right now with Connor Zary.
What's his role? What are you expecting from Connor Zary? So if you're Ryan Huska, what are you asking Connor Zary to do? Is he a third line, grind kind of guy who can score some points for you? Are you expecting him to be a second line scorer? What do you want from Connor Zary to be, first off? And I think you got to put him in that spot to succeed. So for me, define his role and let him have an opportunity to go do that. Bouncing him between your top line right winger to third line winger to fourth line center, back to your second line to play with a. What's his role supposed to be? So I think you need to define his role and put him in a spot to succeed. Put him in a spot where you want him to be, and give him some time. Say, here, have 10, 12 games, and I need you to show me in these games that you can be a third line player. Can he be the fit beside Coleman and Backlund? Can he be a guy that you can slot beside a Ryan Strome to be a line there? Or is he a fourth line center? And if that's the role you want him to be, then define the role. So for me, I think it needs to be defined, and then give him the opportunity to do that job you've asked him to do.
I think that's well put. I agree. I think the number one key for him is you have to define that role, and Huska has not done that this year. You go back and look at Zary's season as a whole. I don't think there's really been one time the entire year where you could say to yourself, okay, Connor Zary, you know exactly where he's going to play in the lineup. You know exactly what's expected of him. You know what special teams he's going to be playing, and just he's going to go out there and do it. Maybe for like a bit during the middle of the season when he went on, a little bit of that heater there. But outside of that, I mean, he hasn't had that opportunity. You go back to the very beginning of the season, he was all over the place. He's playing on the fourth line. He's playing in the top nine. He's a healthy scratch. He's on the power play. He's not on the power play. It's just, there was that. And now we're starting to see that again. So I think it's going to be really important at their year-end meetings and throughout the summer that Huska, Conroy, and Zary are all in communication. They let Connor Zary know, okay, here's what we're expecting of you. When you come back next year, this is where you're going to be in the lineup to start, and this is going to be your role. And then that way, at least Zary can go into the offseason and train and have that kind of peace of mind that he knows, okay, I have a spot on the third line. I have a spot on the second line on the wing. And the team wants me to just get a little bit faster, but I'm going to come into training camp and I know that I have a spot waiting for me, rather than him going in the off season, having a bunch of uncertainty and like, am I going to be in the lineup? Am I not going to be in the lineup? I'm going to be on the fourth line, be on the third line. Establish what the hell this guy is and give him a full season, give him a full off season of training and see what he's got. And then you have until the trade deadline. in 2028 to really decide what you want to do with this guy, but give him a chance, give him a role, give him an opportunity, give him every opportunity possible to become the player that you think he can become. And if he doesn't become that guy, then fine, you can move on from him or you keep him as a depth player. But there's some intriguing talent there, and I think his ceiling is higher than what he showed so far in the NHL. So, and the thing is, like, I'm cheering for the guy. Like, he seems like such a good dude. You know, like you just see him in interviews and you see him on the chase and like different behind the scenes stuff, and you're like, man, this guy seems like such like a cool dude and like a potential leader for this team in the future. He's part of that kind of middle age group of players who kind of need to step up and take over this team. And I'd love to see it, but I think he's got to step up, and I also think the team's got to help him step up and give him a role too. It's not just a one-way street. I think both parties need to step up and do something here.
Yeah, we're 76 games in. If there's a disconnect here, that means communication is not happening properly. So define some roles. And then, like you mentioned, I love how you put that there. Define his role in his next interview. Connor, we need you to be this. If you can fit this role, you have a future in Calgary. And then Connor has an opportunity to be like, I think my best role is this. And you guys can talk about it, work it out, and then go at it. We've just mentioned with Adam Klapka, there's guys coming. So if you don't figure out what Zary's going to be, and if Zary doesn't figure out what he's going to be on this team, he's going to be watching from the sidelines, or he's going to be in another uniform. And I don't want that because I like Connor Zary. I'm a big fan of Connor Zary. I have a Connor Zary jersey I got for Christmas. Like I love him to stick around and to have a role. And I think, much like you do, Robert, I think there's more there from him. He just got to be more consistent. He's got to take advantage of opportunities given to him. So it's kind of a 50-50 here. Huska needs to define what he wants this player to be, and Connor Zary's got to be a player that Ryan Huska can use night in and night out in the National Hockey League, because it's there for him. This is a rebuilding team. This is a team that has spots available for younger players. And when you're, what is he, 24 now, 23, 24, take an opportunity. Be that player. Be a guy who can be a role player on this roster. He's not a top-end guy, but be a role player. Maybe they trade Blake Coleman and Connor Zary steps into that style of role. Like, whatever it might be that player and just take advantage of the opportunity. So it's weird to hear of a disconnect at 76 games into a season here.
Yeah, and I've mentioned it a bunch of times this year, but I'll just reiterate it. It's also on Connor Zary to come back and particularly be a better skater.
100%.
I really think his skating is not even close to the level that it needs to be an effective NHL player. He looks really slow, and the numbers and the data backs it up. So I'd love to see him become a much better skater, kind of like Matt Coronado did. I believe it was a couple summers ago he worked with Daniel Fujita a lot. Mm-hmm. And Coronado went from a player who was a below average skater to, and his skating, I don't think it was like hurting him a ton, but I think there was a lot of room for improvement there, and he put in the work, and you watch him skate now, and he's a really good skater. Like he's ferocious on the forecheck. His like just north-south skating has, I think, improved dramatically. So I don't know how realistic it is for Zary to improve his skating as much as I think it needs to, because he is 24 years old. I don't know how much you can improve your skating at this point of your career, but if I were him, I would be doing everything in my power to try and improve that, because he's got the hands, he's got the vision, he's got the skill. He's got a lot going for him. It's just he's got to move those feet a little bit quicker.
And if you can't improve your speed, learn to play the game faster. Use your pace. Be a smarter player. It worked for Matthew Tkachuk. I know it's an extreme example. It can work for you too. Just gotta be smarter in your approach when it comes to that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. The Flames made a roster move. You mentioned Othman down to the Wranglers, and up comes a player that a lot of people I think are intrigued to watch for the Flames. I can't even say his name. Suniev comes up to the Flames. The expectations for Idar and for what he brings to the Flames should be what, Robert?
You know what? I actually don't have that high of expectations for him. I think it's important that he comes up and plays at least 3 or 4 NHL games just to get an understanding of the pace. Because you know what? Last year in Game 82, it was great that he played in that game, but the Kings, like half their best players weren't playing, and the game was not played at an NHL pace. So
Mm-hmm.
if he can get into these games and play against the Avalanche and play against the Stars and get an understanding of, okay, this is what it's like to play in the NHL. This is how fast it is. This is how fast guys make decisions. I think being part of that is going to be incredibly important for Suniev. But in terms of production or just expectations, I hope he goes out there and I hope he plays hard. I hope he fits in. I hope he shoots the puck because he has a pretty electric shot. He's been playing, like, I've been to a few Wranglers games in the second half of the season, and he's been standing out every night. Looks like he's one of the better players on the ice, and he does have a little bit of a dynamic element to his game. So I'd love to see him use that to his advantage. And yeah, use that shot, go out there and take chances. Hopefully he maybe gets some looks on the second unit power play. Maybe, you know, if the game goes to overtime, maybe he can get a shift in overtime or go in the shootout, like little things like that. But I mainly hope he just kind of goes into it with this attitude of wanting to learn and wanting just to experience what it's like to play at NHL pace, and then take all that information that he's gathered, take it into the off season and use it to his advantage, and try to come back next year looking to push for a spot. He'll probably end up starting next year in the American Hockey League, but come into camp next year and make an impression and make it a difficult decision on the Flames coaching staff to send you down. That's kind of what I'm hoping to see from him.
No, I want Yager or bust. No, just kidding. Just kidding. I'd just like to see him play games. Let him play those games. Let him show off what brought him to the National Hockey League, why the Flames drafted him, why he had such a good college career. Just come in here and play some games. Get a feel for what this game is, what it takes to be a National Hockey League player. And like you mentioned there, take this information in and make the push next year for a full-time job. If this guy can get his shot to translate, his smarts to translate, and be at a National Hockey League level, the Flames have something here. They have something here. I'm not talking like maybe a 50-goal scorer, but there could be a guy who could be a better version of Sharon Govich, a guy who can be a reliable scorer if he can get these things to translate to the National Hockey League level. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can provide and what he can add to this Flames team. There's no pressure right now, right? We mentioned that a couple times on this podcast. No pressure situation, just an opportunity to be in NHL games and to see what you can bring to the table. Take advantage of it, because right now there's plenty of jobs available over the next few seasons, and if you can take advantage of the situation, awesome. If he can't, then next man up, I guess. So for me, I don't have expectations like you do. I'd like to see him come in here and just play games. That's all I really want for any of these kids. Just show us what you got, why you were drafted, why you got to the National Hockey League, why the Flames believe in you. That's all. There's so just low expectations and just play hockey games.
What do you think his ceiling is in the NHL?
I think if he can get his game to translate, you're talking like maybe a second line scorer, a guy that you can rely on your second line, get you that 20 goals, be a guy that can add a little bit of secondary scoring to your roster, and if we can reach those type of ceilings, I'd be tickled pink over it. Third round pick, becoming a second line player, I'd be tickled pink over it.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, I think he kind of maxes out as a 20 to 25 goal guy, 40 to 50 points, kind of a middle six winger. And like you said, for a third round pick, if he could turn into something like that, I think you'd be thrilled if you're the Flames. And if it doesn't work out, well, then maybe you have a good player for the Calgary Wranglers for, the next 3 to 5 years potentially. And that's also important too, because the Calgary Wranglers, they've had a brutal season and they need some help down there. So
they need a reset.
Do they ever? And you know what? They're going to get it. I mean, if you go to Puckpedia and you take a look at all the contracts that are expiring this year, it's like half the Wranglers. So
yeah, it's a lot.
They're going to need a reset. And Suniev, if he's not an NHL player, he could actually be a pretty big part of that. So, that's another way to look at it too.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Kind of a fun topic to wrap up the podcast here, Robert. Long-term Hockey Night in Canada, a broadcaster. He's done a really good job. He runs after hours. Scott Oake has announced his retirement at the end of the National Hockey League playoffs. Sad to see Scotty go. I grew up with Scott Oake on my TV screen like a lot of people my and your age. what do you make of the retirement? And then the fun question will be, who replaces Scott Oake? Because there's some interesting names out there.
Yeah, number one, shout out to Scott Oake. What a tremendous career.
Legend.
I'm with you. Like growing up when I was like in my younger days, some of like my favorite hockey memories were watching the Flames on Hockey Night in Canada and then watching After Hours after. I always thought that was so much fun. And Scott Oake did such a good job on that show. He was incredibly prepared. He really spotlighted the players in a positive light and showed off, all their charity work and showed off some fun stories. Like I always thought After Hours was one of the best ways to get to know players. And I think Scott was obviously the number one reason behind that. So, and he's just, he's so smooth too, right? Like he's just such a smooth, like cool broadcaster. Like the guy is incredible.
Incredible interviewer. Like the guy knows how to get the best out of people. Like a lot of interviews you see, a lot of hockey players are very stiff, not with Scott Oake. And it's just incredible to watch him work. I'm in awe at his interviewing skills. I wish I had them.
I think he's the best interviewer at Sportsnet. I think he's that good. So it's a big loss for the Sportsnet broadcast crew, but now it opens up an opportunity. And I was wondering the other day, I was like, are they even gonna keep After Hours going next year? Because it's Scott's baby, so Scott's been doing it forever. Sportsnet went away with it for a few years, like when they initially got the rights. So
because they're stupid.
Well, and I was just going to say, whenever Sportsnet makes a decision, I think they think to themselves, how can we piss off hockey fans? How can we save money? And I'm hoping that's not the case, because I still really like After Hours. Like the Devin Cooley episode a couple weeks ago was phenomenal.
Yeah, that's why you love it.
Oh, it's so good. So, in terms of replacements, I always thought Ryan Leslie would have been the perfect replacement for Scott Oake.
Agreed, yep.
But Sportsnet, I don't want to rip on them, too much, but like, I don't think they're the most forward-thinking company. I don't think they're looking 5 years out, thinking to themselves like, who's the next talent that can step into our lineup here, because they let Rick Ball go, which was a gigantic mistake. Mm-hmm. They should have made him one of the national guys. Like he should be doing Stanley Cup finals once Chris Cuthbert retires. They let Ryan Leslie go. Like they're just letting all these talented people go. And in terms of replacement, I think Leslie would have been perfect. But now that he's in Toronto, I don't know if that's a realistic possibility. Maybe it's just one of those things where they get the Western host, whether it's Dan Murphy or Gene Principe or Brendan Parker, just to host it themselves. Because I don't know if there's going to be that replacement for Scott Oake. Could Kyle Bukauskas do that? But would that be a downgrade because Kyle's doing the Maple Leaf games? I don't really know who they would get to do that type of segment. So, but once again, just Scott Oake was just an incredible broadcaster. He's also done amazing things in the community, amazing things for mental health. His family story is heartbreaking, and he's made a huge impact on so many different people's lives and helping with mental health and addiction. So he's just seems like an incredible guy, an incredible broadcaster. He's going to be missed. And it's going to be hard to replace him. Like, are there any names that come to mind for you?
All right. Let's get into this. Because there's no replacing Scott Oake. So let's just get that out there right now. You cannot replace Scott Oake. So even if you keep After Hours, it's going to change. It's going to be something different. And that is what it is. Sportsnet has a history of letting good guys walk. Jeff Merritt comes to mind, as well as Ryan Leslie comes to mind. And those guys, Rick Ball, like you mentioned. I really wonder, though, if there's two sides to the coin for Kyle Bukauskas here. If he continues to do his gig, but then he takes over the second half hosting Hockey Night in Canada and the After Hours. He lives in Calgary now, so he can be out west a lot. And the way that he's rocking it up, Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada, he's rocking it up their ranks. I really wonder about what he becomes with that network and with what they're doing. He's on 32 Thoughts with Elliot, who was handpicked by Elliot to be part of that broadcast. He does a pretty good job as the ringside guy. He was the guy at the Olympics. I went over there. I really wonder if Kyle Bukauskas doesn't just take that role on as is, because he'd still be getting a lot of national spotlight. He'd still be getting his dues as the ringside guy. And I would view this as a promotion, not a demotion like some people might. So he, for me, I think would be the front runner in there. And I don't really know anyone else who would be in there. I wonder if they do local media. I wonder if guys like Eric Francis still gets an opportunity to be in there, Gene Principe to be in there, and to be a co-host of an after-hours style program for the Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada. But for me, it really comes down to, is Kyle Bukauskas the guy? That's just how I look at it. The other name I would think of would be, what's his name now? His first name. The other Cuthbert in Toronto. Justin, thank you. I had it on my notes and I can't find it now. I wonder if Justin Cuthbert would be a guy that would take a step like that forward and be approached by Hockey Night in Canada, if he would do it. Just because, his dad's in the business, right? And he's in the business. He's been around Toronto a lot. He's in the big market itself. And so he would be a guy that's known to the powers at be that make those type of decisions. So that would be my dark horse. But I really think it is Kyle Bukauskas if they fill that role.
Yeah, and like some other names that I was just kind of thinking of is, is Carolyn Cameron, looking to do something like that. I think she's super talented. Is a really good broadcaster. Faisal Kamisa, he does a lot of ringside reporting. Mm-hmm. There's Sean McKenzie does a lot of ringside reporting. Could he do that kind of role?
Oh, yeah.
Those are some other names too. But what they did, historically on Hockey Night in Canada, they would have national broadcasters doing the play-by-play for the late game on Hockey Night in Canada. It was Dave Randorf for a bit, and what was the other guy's name? It was
Mark Lee did it.
Yeah, there was Harnarayan Singh. They had national guys doing those games, but now they've switched to regional guys doing the Saturday night games, and I'm almost wondering if they just do the same thing for that rinkside role for the late night game. If it's in Calgary, it's Brendan Parker. If it's the Oilers, it's Gene. And if it's Vancouver, it's Dan Murphy. I almost wonder if it's going to be something like that, just because, it's one less body to pay. And, the Rogers, they're paying a disgusting amount of money for these rights. And I don't think they're making too much money off of it. So I'm sure they're looking to cut costs at every corner. But,
well, they're so hard done by.
Oh, yeah, I feel so bad for them. And like I said, they just do everything they can to piss off hockey fans. So this would just be another example of that. But, yeah, man, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Mm-hmm. My official prediction is that they're going to can after hours. That's just kind of, I feel like they're going to say, you know what, we don't want to be on the air for that extra 30 minutes. We have to pay people, we have to pay production people, we have to pay hosts, all that kind of stuff. And now that Scott's not there and it was his baby, I bet you they cancel after hours. That's my official guess. I hope I'm wrong because I love the program.
That sounds like Sportsnet. All the best to Scott Oake in retirement. I know he's still going to work through all the playoffs, but happy retirement to Scott Oake. One of the best, legend of the game, and I will miss Hockey Night in Canada and miss hearing Scott Oake. Robert, anything else you want to bring up on the show today? If not, what's coming up from you on flamesnation.ca, and where can the folks find you?
Yeah, just follow me at Ring of Fire CGY. I'm just I'm still clipping all the highlights and trying to come up with fun content during this point and where the games don't really matter. So it's a bit of a challenge, but we're fighting through it and trying to get the creative juices flowing here.
The good news is we're just a couple weeks from the playoffs, so there'll be a lot of fun when those come around. A few games left for the Flames, 6 left on the season, a couple coming this week. Enjoy the hockey. He's Ring of Fire CGY across social media. I'm Vintage Johnny. And, of course, the show, Red Mile Rundown, wherever you get your content or do your social media-ing. That's even a word. Enjoy the hockey this week. We'll see you next week here on the show. Appreciate you, and be safe out there. Enjoy the beginning of spring.